Welcome to Building the Basics, where we walk new and prospective gun owners through the how, what, why, and where on your gun ownership journey.
On this episode, we have Kenrick from On Point Arms in Windsor, Colorado. So we're really looking forward to having our horizons expanded, getting into some different parts of the country. So Kenrick, thanks for joining us today. We look forward to chatting about FFLs.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about who you are and how did you get involved in the gun industry?
What's On Point Arms?
Yeah, a brief, quick history about me, and the reason I'll put it out there is because you'll hear a slight accent. I was Kenrick Illidge. I was born in St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands, born and raised. Joined the military. I served right out of high school. Joined the Air Force. Served 13 years in the Air Force, 8 years active, 5 years reserves. Worked on ICBMs, nuclear missiles for the folks that don't know what ICBMs are. Got out and just wanted to be a civilian again. Started working for a couple big companies, which is one of them I still work for. I'm 20 years in there. And 7 years ago, I decided to become an FFL. It didn't just start, the wheels didn't get turning in my head 7 years ago. It actually started back in the early 2000s. Like I was telling you guys before, what really triggered me to pursue it was the passing of my dad in 2017, in which we were really close. And instead of sitting around, moping around, I decided to now is the time. Let's do it. Let's jump into it and see what happens. I went into being a FFL, which is a federal firearms license. So I'm a federal firearms licensee. I hold two FFLs, a 01 and a 07. One's just a regular retailer, which is the 01, the 07. You're a manufacturer, retailer, and so forth. So I hold both licenses, and I went into the being an FFL with no expectations, no big, show or anything, just to see what happens, because I love firearms. I always have since a little boy. And here I am, 7 years later, like I was saying, it turned into something that I never imagined. I met some very tremendously good people along the way. I learned a lot more about firearms. I thought I knew a lot at the time. I knew nothing. Absolutely nothing, compared to, and I still don't. I mean, it's a continuous learning, just like anything else. So my knowledge have increased, my will and help people have increased, which is the biggest thing is helping someone to get armed, be able to defend themselves, and not only that, enjoy firearms, because firearms are they're made to be enjoyed as well. It's a certain, it's a way to go relieve steam on the range, have a good time with friends. It builds camaraderie. And that I enjoy the most also, the people that comes along with being an FFL and being in the firearms industry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so you're an FFL, but you're not like a standard FFL. So you are a home-based FFL. So most of our listeners are going to be familiar with going to a gun store. They're familiar with going to a gun show and buying guns from those places, but probably not have gone to a home-based FFL. Now, I have experience with home-based FFLs. I love home-based FFLs. It's easier, in my opinion, to get the things that you want. You have a personal relationship. You're not a sales guy, but tell us, what is a home-based FFL?
A home-based FFL is exactly what it is. You're a firearms dealer from your home. Okay, so you sell guns and everything. You do everything just like a brick and mortar store, but it's at your home. Okay, and by doing that, you mentioned a lot of good benefits from being a home-based FFL. The relationships you build with people, that's the number one thing. Secondly, it's at your home. So for me, to be honest with you, I get to still spend time with my family.
Yep.
Because I'm there, I'm not running back and forth to a brick and mortar store or managing employees and so much. There's a lot more that comes along with having a brick and mortar. You know, there's definitely benefits, but there's definitely downfalls in my eyes, and at least for me, because I'm there with my family, they can help, and I'm right there. The little bit of the downfall is you know, you have folks that come into your home. Um, I run my FFL out of my garage. Um, everything is safe. It's up to the city's code. It's up to the ATF's code as far as security and how things are done. So there's nothing that falls short of either one of those things that I listed. But I get to stand there for a while, talk to people one on one. I don't. There's no one looking over your shoulder, and I can fulfill that person's needs in and beyond their expectations as far as what firearms and they need, they want to see. We could talk about it, and I get a better idea of what works for them. So you're not an invoice. We're building a relationship, becoming friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So as being a home base, that's the advantage. That's there's some small downfalls, but I think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages.
I would think that you could probably offer better pricing than a brick and mortar simply because you don't have the same overhead that those guys have, right? They have a lot of employees, they have a store that they have to pay a lease on. So I think, you know, from my experience, I've always gotten better pricing from home-based FFLs versus a brick and mortar, because brick and mortars, you know, they need to make a certain amount of profit in order to keep the business afloat. The other piece of it is they generally have relationships with manufacturers. And so, you know, if say one company is saying, if you sell 5 or 10 of my guns this month, then I'll give your sales guy a free one of these, right? Then they're like, oh, well, you know, every gun that's being pushed is this brand, versus a home-based FFL where you're really not doing any of that. You're just, again, relying on that relationship and, you know, being able to say, you know what, this is what this is going to cost instead of, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, there's some very good points on there. I won't call any names, but take, for instance, a big retailer not too far from us right here in Windsor.
Yeah.
Just one town over in Johnstown.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say. Yes, they have the big thing with a brick and mortar and a storefront and those big retailers is the foot traffic.
Yes.
They get a lot more foot traffic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the way I combat that is I go above and beyond. Like I said, you're just an invoice to those guys.
Yeah.
How much we could put out and stuff like that. It's just like with anything you do or anything else you learn. Let's relate it to shooting. You learn to shoot first. The speed comes. It eventually comes, no matter what.
Yeah.
Same thing with me being a home-based FFL. It's slower. I don't have the foot traffic, but I'm grateful for the folks that I've met for the word of mouth. That's the biggest, the most powerful tool in retail, or as we related to the gun industry, is if someone who's knowledgeable, who will treat them right and be honest, not just sell them a gun. Here, you need this or you need that.
Yeah.
Okay. And we talked about it earlier, you know, some folks say, you know, oh, if it's a female or whoever it is, somebody could be someone with different strengths. You need a Glock, or you need this, or you need that. And that's not the way it works, man. They need what works for them, what fits well in their hands, what they can effectively shoot and control. That's what they need. They don't need what you think they need. You need what is tailored to them and what will suit their needs. And you don't get that at a big box store.
No, because I have 10 minutes to talk to the sales guy for him to learn who I am and what I'm looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus you and I think we've probably spent hours together just having conversations around, hey, you know, what am I interested in? What does my next purchase look like? You know, what do I shoot today? Right. And so I think that's very different than somebody who just knows me from 10 minutes ago saying, you should buy this,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm going to be more confident about your recommendation than some guy that I've been talking to for 15 minutes, and he's like, you should really buy that. Are you sure that's a $1,500 gun? He's like, yeah, you should really buy that. Like,
It's all about numbers for those guys. I'm sorry to say it, and I don't believe in bashing anyone, but
Yeah.
it's about numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, the more they could put out the door, the better. Which, of course, we're all in business to make money.
Yeah.
Okay, but there has to be a level of caring for your customer. In my eyes, that's why I refuse to be a brick and mortar. I do well as it is. Like I said, I never imagined it would be the way it is. I ship firearms all over the country to folks that have never met me personally. They might met me, have seen me on social media, they followed me, but through talking on the phone and researching what I told them or we talked about to back it up, and they call back or they say, you know what, you were right. Let's go with this. Let's go with that. And so that's how it works. And you build relationships. There's folks that traveled in to train with me and different things, and that I've met at different places. But it's all about, you have to build a level of trust as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's a couple points that I had, and the first one is you mentioned about the how it might be a female that's coming in, never shot a gun. I actually just had this conversation with one of my neighbors. Actually, she just bought her first gun. She was in the pro shop at a local gun shop here, and she said she and her son, I think, spent like 2-3 hours just test firing different guns.
Mhm.
The last gun she tried was the final, the final one that she hadn't used yet, and it was the one that she ended up purchasing. It was one of the 320s, the DH3 model. And the thing that she loved the most about that gun was how heavy it was, which people don't think that a heavy gun is more comfortable to shoot. But Marvin, we've talked about this in several episodes. You have a heavier gun, it's going to absorb that recoil better. And um, everything that I heard from her, it just tracked with what Marvin and I have been saying. And it's neat to hear, somebody completely outside what our normal circle is, kind of validate our thinking and validate what we've always been taught and heard and this and that. And it's just, I don't know, it's cool to see. So yeah, it tracks.
That's very good. And I commend her for trying, your neighbor for trying numerous firearms and coming to that conclusion on her own. Because heavier guns, yeah, if it's a concealed carry, it's a little bit burdensome to carry. But as far as the shootability, it's going to mitigate the recoil a lot better. It's going to, be a lot more controllable and stuff like that. So, it's some things is good when people find it out for themselves, and I encourage folks. Once I tailor a gun that fits well in their hands, I encourage them to go out to a private range that I've been a member of for 23 years. Let's go shoot the gun and see. That's the final, straw that seals that seals everything right there. It fits well in your hands, and you manage the gun well on a firing line or in a range. So that's very important, and there's very few places that you could get that type of service to where you could shoot a gun, unless you pay excess of money to rent a bunch of firearms and get to shoot them. So that's, I think, an important part that a lot of people tend to just disregard, or take away the name, take away the model, take away everything else. Does it fit well in your hands? And how well can you be effective? Can you effectively shoot that firearm and safely shoot it? So,
Yeah, that actually brings me to the second point/question that I had for you is, you have a whole smorgasbord of different guns that people can try as their first gun, right? So you mentioned that you have an ability to, just pretty much offer whatever people are looking for. So how do you manage inventory as a home-based FFL? How do you make sure that people can whether it be try different things or if they're specifically looking for something that they want to buy. Uh, how do you manage that inventory?
So the inventory, that it was a long road to where I'm at now as far as that goes.
Okay.
Initially, when I first started out, just a little bit of history on it, I would, I didn't have a full website. I would upload firearms that were available to me from my distributors and manage, the quantities myself. And it was very few, three, four, five guns, not much. As time went along and I sold more guns, I did the right thing and set aside money and I started purchasing more guns. I would pay attention to the market, pay attention to what people would call around and ask for, and I would start stocking those firearms. So eventually, from stocking, anywhere from 3 to 5 guns, I started, and now I stock about 80 firearms on hand to include, like suppressors and stuff like that. So I keep a lot of the high hitting items or the bread and butter items that I stand behind, and I think they're of good quality on hand. Okay. I don't stock everything. Some things I refuse to physically stock because I don't stand behind some products. Um, and by doing that, also, once I became more financially stable in the industry, I signed up with there's a company called Gearfire. And what they do, they own the platform, but I manage it. So they have a feed from all of the distributors um, that I'm signed up with, and they feed all their inventory to that website. So that's all that's available to me. I don't physically have it all in stock, but once you build a good relationship with your distributors, they can get those firearms to you in anywhere from the next day to within 2 to 3 days. So
Wow.
if someone orders a firearm from me from my website, 9 times out of 10, I could have that firearm the next day. I don't tell them that. So whoever listens to this, I'm letting the cat out the bag. Sometimes a holiday or the weekend gets in the way and stuff like that. But generally, if it's on a Monday, I could have the firearm by the Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. So the turnaround is pretty good, for people that are patient. Some people, they want that here and now. And that's why I stock the bread and butter, the high hitting items, the popular guns. I keep a fair amount of those on hand.
That's neat. That's really cool. So when when that firearm comes in or that suppressor comes in, barring all of the paperwork and everything is done and
hmm
settled and everything like that. So will people just come to your house to pick it up because you are an FFL, right? So it's not like it's any kind of private sale or anything. And admittedly, I don't know all of the Colorado laws specifically, but when it comes to New Hampshire, there is the ability to do a private sale between two parties, but obviously
Yep.
not in other states. But you are a licensed FFL, so if that was a part of the law, then yeah, people can come to your quote unquote home because that is also your business, and
Yeah.
so I'm guessing people can just come and do your paperwork and fill out the 4473, and you're good to go.
Yep. So first of all, I operate on an appointment type basis. So I generally, most of the phone calls that come in or the orders, we establish there's certain questions I ask people on the phone to determine, it's not a tell all of what kind of individual I'm dealing with, but it gives me a very good idea of what, this person, if I need to just send them down the street to somebody else or a brick and mortar, or if I'll deal with them. And once we cross that bridge online, or if they just order on the website without me knowing who they are, I make a phone call to them or I text them to establish, hey, is this sure are you sure this is what you wanted? And stuff like that. And I talk to them to make sure it's no kind of like fraudulent purchase or anything like that. And it's almost like a little quick interview. A lot of the times they don't even know that, but I know I've been in it for a little bit of while. I know what questions to ask right away. Once we crossed all those bridges, then, we go by appointment. Hey, what time works for you? This is the time slots I have. And that's when they show up. When folks show up, I grab their ID right off the bat. I check things out, and you know, there's a level of situational awareness that goes into being a home-based dealer as well, because you check people out before they even get there. There's so much tools available to us that you can do that. And I use them to my advantage, and I'm just being honest. So there's a level of security and precautions and different things you have to take, and I do take them. But when somebody comes, it's just like going to any other gun store or anywhere else, a brick and mortar. You have to fill out a form 4473, which is a firearms transaction form from a dealer to a civilian or a regular person. That form is filled out. A NICS check is done on them, which is the background check. Everything is done just like a brick and mortar. There's nothing different. There's no exceptions or nothing different happens. And once that's done, previously before October 1st of 2023, they could leave with the firearm once they successfully pass a background check. Now, Colorado does have a 3-day waiting period of 72 hours that you have to wait. So they'll have to return and pick up the firearm. It's funny, a little bit further, and what makes me actually feel good about what I do, I have folks that travel from Southern Colorado to buy guns from me. They might stay the night in Denver or drive back or come back in 3 days or plan their little trip around it or whatever to buy guns just because they want to buy guns from On Point Arms. And that's one of the best feelings. There's so many stores they have to go by to get to me, And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, this, I hate to toot my horn like this, but that's one of the best feelings as being, that as being a FFL, to know that you impact folks and you take pride in what you do, and folks are traveling 2-3 hours to come buy a firearm from you, or a firearm they couldn't find anyplace else because I'm the one that had it. So there's a lot of logistics that come into play with being a home-based and the firearms you keep in inventory and stuff like that. You have to be very smart and very selective and pay attention to the market to keep your inventory right, and use social media as a great outlet to show people, hey, I have this, and I bet you your dealer doesn't have it. Okay, so that you have to stand out that way. If you don't, you'll go by the wayside, man.
Yeah,
And that's
and you mentioned
interesting.
a lot of really good points there in that you have that relationship that you develop with people. You have the ability to, number one, read people, develop that relationship, determine, what kind of firearm they're looking for if they are not, if they're unsure of what they want, and you have that conversation with them. And like we were talking about earlier, it's that people first mentality is huge. And yeah, that's a normal life, right? But that's also, especially when you're dealing with something like firearms, that people first mentality. You show care, you show compassion, you show empathy, all that, and you really dig down into why are they looking for this, that, the other thing, and you develop that relationship, and it's something that the next purchase they're going to think of you first because you gave them a great relationship, you gave them a great experience. So I commend you for all the steps that you were talking about, because that is a memorable thing that people will respect, they'll care about, and they'll return. So that's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is the and it is not a good thing, right? For anybody who's listening, it is not a good thing that there is a waiting period. But that may be the only silver lining of a waiting period is for FFLs if they do not have the inventory on hand and I want something, I can complete the paperwork and you've got 3 days to get that inventory on hand because I got to wait for it anyway, right?
Yep.
So now I've got 3 days for you to get what I need on hand, right? And so I think that would be the only silver lining from a waiting period standpoint. Obviously, I prefer to have buy whatever you've got in inventory, but um, that's it. I guess it would allow you to have a little bit of better management,
Yeah.
logistics wise.
And from a logistics standpoint, a lot of the things I mentioned, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So it's a game of you have a rep for your distributors. You have to take the good with the bad. You have to build a relationship with them as well in order for them to get you that one allocated item. It could be an allocated firearm. So it's a juggling act, not only with your customers and the industry and stuff, but with the reps. You they may offer something to me that I know I can't move right away, but in order to help them out, I'll probably purchase it to gain access to something else. So there's a lot of things in the background that folks don't know about that happens, and sacrifices you have to make, to get to that level. And it's I wear multiple hats, the CEO, the CFO, the buyer and stuff like that, the marketer and everything. And being a home-based FFL, you have to be up for the task of doing all those things to be somewhat successful,
Yeah. But you also know what's going on in your business, and your customers can rely on you to get the things that they need when they want it, right? And so I think that's
Absolutely.
that's something that if it was a bigger organization, right, the sales guy might not know how long something's going to take to get in. The sales guy might not know when the shipments are coming in.
They don't.
Yeah.
They have no clue.
Yeah.
And a prime example for that, I just dealt with a customer. He was looking for this certain firearm. He went to numerous places before. He's like, all right, I'll give this guy a call. And he called me, and I had it on my website. And he's like, well, is it there physically to where I could hold it? I was like, no, it's not. It's a common firearm with very specific features. And I said, if you held this certain Glock before, it's the same, but it has some other features that he liked, the threaded barrel and optics ready and stuff like that. And he was flat out. He said, everybody else told me it'll be about 2 to 3 weeks. I said, well, if you order that gun, I'll have it here. It was like on a Monday. I said, I'll have it here by Wednesday. And he was like, no way, everybody, and these are bigger stores. So this is just drawing an example that they had no clue. And big stores, they don't order kind of like that. They have to channel it up and I knew exactly. I knew I could have had it. I had the gun Tuesday.
Yeah.
So that's the benefits of a home-based FFL, because you're wearing multiple hats, you know what's going on with your business, and you can make things happen. And once you're honest with your customers, some things, there's a wait. I have to be honest. Not everything works out well like that, but there's a wait, but it's a more accurate time frame or ETA that I'm giving them that they'll get anyplace else from some brick and mortar.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other piece of it is just like you said, right? You hold an inventory. All gun stores hold an inventory in terms of what they're gonna, we'll use Glock 19 as an example. Glock 19 is bread and butter for a lot of gun stores, so they're going to hold a large inventory of Glock 19.
You have to, yeah.
Whereas that prevents them from holding other guns that if you want something that has a specific flavor of that Glock 19, right? So you've got Glock 19, you got Glock 19 MOS, you got generation 4, 3, 4, 5, right? You've got the new one that has the new aim point red dot on it, right?
Yeah.
So you've got all of these different versions, and so it's difficult for a gun store that already has, say, $10,000 wrapped up in Glock 19s to pick up another flavor of Glock 19 or inventory it, versus you, where you could probably have one of every flavor, and if somebody's looking for that specific flavor, they can just come to you and say, hey, do you have this? Yeah. You can move that. So I think there's so many benefits of working with a home-based FFL. You're also probably working with more distributors than a brick and mortar.
They might have 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Max maybe 4.
Yeah.
I have 8.
Yeah.
I actually have more than that, because that's the distributors, but there's also dealer direct with a lot of reputable big name companies as well. And that's because of dealing with a lot of LEO and federal agencies and stuff, that actually catapulted me and put me in a good position to get accounts with these big companies and maintain them, because not only do I use it to help them, I use it to help civilians as well,
Mhm.
who are looking for those firearms or that NFA item they can't find at a brick and mortar.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's huge advantages, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's the next point I wanted to ask you about, and this may be something that, a lot of our listeners are probably thinking about right now, is what are the misconceptions that people may have when you're talking about a home-based FFL, right? What are some of the misconceptions that you've encountered?
This can't be real. So I if you Google On Point Arms LLC, I have probably about 180 or more 5-star reviews. They're all 5-star reviews, and that's people that I know and don't know. Vast majority I don't know. So that was a huge advantage to me of building that credibility online, and I almost had to do it, and tell people, I would set a dealer, hey, drop me a Google review because it helps me against the brick and mortars where they get foot traffic. Some people, they have Google On Point Arms LLC. They drove by and it was like, this is out of a home. This is a scam. This can't be right. But when you have a large number of 5-star reviews, they say, well, wait, there's this much people and probably triple that haven't left a review, that did something, had a good relationship or good interaction with him. Something, has to be wrong. So that's a tool that I use, and that's the misconception that some people have, is that it's a home base. This is some kind of a scam. It's sketch. It can't be right. You can't sell firearms from your home, and I'm like, yes, you can. It's allowed. There's a certain channel you have to go through to be able to do it, and approval from your city and the type of zoning and stuff for where you live. But it is possible. It cannot work. Every city or town or doesn't allow it, but the vast majority does.
Okay. No, I mean, I think that's probably what a lot of people don't realize, is that finding a home-based FFL is something that, if you want to find one local to you, the way that I found you was I used Gunbroker.
Uh-huh.
I was like, on Gunbroker, what are the home-based FFLs that are closest to me? And then I Googled you, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, who has the best review? Who are people saying that they trust? And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a call.
Yeah. And you have to use, we're in 2025, man.
Yeah.
We have so much tools at our disposal. Social media, you have, Google. And there you could find out so much about someone before, So I try to use those tools to my advantage as being a home-based FFL, and you have to. If you want to be successful, you have to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to be mediocre, then you could kick that stuff to the wayside. But if your heart's truly in it and you want to help people, that's something that a step you have to take
Mhm.
and actually make it work to your advantage to get somewhere,
Mhm.
As we were kind of hinting at earlier, so as new people are coming to find you, new people coming to speak with you, so what are some recommendations that you'll give people, whether it be for pistol, rifle, shotgun, anything like that? Um, you know, how do you tell people how to choose a platform or brand? What are some of the conversations that you have with people?
To be honest with you, budget dictates a lot in this industry. It dictates a lot, but it's not everything. You might have somebody who is financially, it doesn't matter, hey, I just want a good firearm or whatever. Or you might have someone who's, they, whatever happened, they need a firearm for self-defense. It could be nothing against anyone. It could be a single mom who's on a very strict, tight budget. And I tend to stray them away from just the common guns. There's so many firearms that they're cheap firearms, but they're horrible firearms. And I think we all know a lot of the names of those guns. I'm not gonna even say their names because I'm not about doing that. But There's firearms that may cost $100 more, in some cases $50 more, that are way better than the crappy ones that we know. Okay. So first of all, I establish them and I introduce them to those firearms and the different models and find one that will fit their hands well. It'll suit their needs, whether it's for home and concealed carry, for going out on the range, but will be actually reliable for them. And that's where the time of a home base FFL, his time and knowledge comes into play, because at a big box store, they're gonna just say, "Hey, this will work for you. It's small, it's compact," and that's it. They're not gonna go into to more details about the reputation of the manufacturer. Then a lot of people ask, "Well, what would I do, or what do I think? Have I shot this gun or whatever?" And a lot of the times, I could say, "Yes, I have shot this gun, but this is what I don't like about it." I could give firsthand experiences as to if the firearms will at least fit into their criteria. Most A brick and mortar, you can't. Well, I won't say a brick and mortar, but big box retail stores where the most foot traffic goes, they can't do that. Okay. Some places, stores around here, they have ranges. You can rent firearms. A lot of the firearms they rent are just the most common ones, the bread and butter ones. There's other firearms, like take for instance SARS. SARS are great firearms. They have a subcompact. The SAR 9 is a great gun, very accurate, easy to handle, and stuff like that. And it's geared towards people that are on a budget. So there's many other ones that fit into that criteria. So I tend to broaden the horizon for folks as far as the different firearms other than what they've heard throughout the years. Introduce it to them. Last catch all is they might be deciding between two firearms. Then we go out and we shoot those firearms. Okay, you run a magazine through. It could be a Smith and Wesson Shield Plus or a SAR, and they might feel both the same way. Let's see which one you control better or feel well or you're most accurate with. So that's another benefit of being a home base FFL, for helping someone choose the right firearm, whether it's a handgun or a rifle or whatever it is. And it's the same thing with rifles. There are some manufacturers you want to stay away from, and there's some that um, for a good price, that is definitely worth your time and money. The ones that are on the lower end that people go after, I see them come back and go back to the manufacturers quite a bit. I'm adjusting, the gas blocks come loose on them, or it's not cycling or whatever it is. And, the workmanship is just not up to par, man. And I'm just being real about it, man. And I'm pretty honest with folks and say, hey, I have seen a slew of these guns come in. I don't really recommend them. But in turn, if it's somebody who's adamant about spending their money on that item, it's their money. Okay. If they say, nope, I want this no matter what, I tell them, give them my disclaimer, and I tell them, here's why I would not choose that firearm. And then ultimately they decide what they want to spend their money on. But I do my due diligence as a FFL and forewarn them about what I think would be best for them or not.
Yeah, like the pros and cons of each decision kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you have like a dedicated section of rental firearms that are like the ones that are okay, you have, like you said, you might have a Glock 19, Smith and Wesson, and one of the SAR 9s. Do you have those available as like a used one that you can say, okay, we'll take these three to the range. These are the ones we were talking about, and then you kind of keep those for your company to have as like a baseline. Okay, we'll take these to the range. These are my range guns. These are my trial guns, kind of thing.
Absolutely. Most of the guns that I do recommend or fall into that category,
Mhm.
they're guns that I use for training classes. Okay. And if it's someone in a basic pistol class or whatever it is, they tend to they're already sold actually, and that's part of my process. I use those specific guns in a basic pistol class or someone who's taken, if it's a private class or whatever it is, and by the time the class is done, they're sold right there on the spot as to which gun they want. So instead of even going through that whole process again, they already shot the gun and they're already telling me this is the one. They shot it well, and a lot of the times I could see which one is the one, which one they handle well, they're most accurate with. The grip is more consistent on, and stuff like that. So that's kind of my process. A lot of the people that come to me, first time buyers, I get them into a basic pistol class, and they get to shoot those guns. So before we actually get into putting a high number of rounds down range, I let them shoot each one of the guns first to see which one they want to continue the class in. And usually that's the gun they end up buying.
That's cool. That's really neat. So when you have somebody that's coming in, they make that decision, you take them to the range. What kind of conversation do you have post sale of, okay, well, you have your firearm now, or maybe you do this pre sale. It's like, okay, you already have the idea of what they might want the firearm for, whether it's concealed carry, home defense, competition, whatever it is. Where does the accessory conversation come in? Of course, we're trying to gear our conversation right now towards the new and prospective gun owners. So it
Yes.
depends on what their application is going to be, and don't want to take them down too many rabbit holes to overflow their brain. So do you get into like an accessory type of discussion, or do you kind of just leave it as is?
I keep the accessories basic, holsters, some mag pouches, and ammunition
That's
out
good.
of everything for training, because outside of getting the firearm and in your holster and your mag pouch, it's training, man. That's where it's at. That's what's gonna make your firearms experience even more enjoyable. Whether you're getting it for self-defense or just to have a good time on the range, um, I tell them, make everything with a purpose. Forget, your tack light, all this other stuff you can get later on, man. It's just focus on being as proficient as you can with the new tool that you got. Okay, we don't go out and buy, all these high dollar electric or power tools and not just to have them sit around and not know how to use them.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people that buy guns, they sit in a drawer, they sit in a closet, they sit in a safe, and they never touch them. I don't believe in that. If especially if it's for a self-defense purpose, you need to be on the range or somewhere getting with a reputable instructor to get some training, some good valid points, get some reps in, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love to hear that because that's something else that Marvin and I and Tim we talk about. It's like you need to know how to use the thing that you just bought, pretty much. So exactly what you just said. And I was looking at your site, and you have some classes up there. Uh, so you're kind of a one-stop shop, which is awesome. And I know you talked about it a little earlier that you take them to the range, and these are the firearms that you'll use during classes. So can you talk to us a little bit about the classes that you offer? Is there more that you do put up that's not currently available on your website, and how do you determine what goes on, all that kind of stuff?
Yep. So I offer basic pistol, basic rifle, or introduction to rifles, introduction to pistols, however you want to look at it, and defensive pistol, defensive rifles, the Colorado CHP courses. Now we have the refresher courses that you have to take. I've been really busy doing those lately because they have to take a refresher course to renew their permit.
Is that
And
once a year?
so every 5 years the permit comes due, but the law just went into effect July 1st of this year. So the folks that are coming due after July 1st, they all have to take the Colorado refresher course. I am a verified instructor by Larimer County, the county we live in, but I am also verified and good for the entire state of Colorado. So I can teach the refresher or the CHP class anywhere to anyone in any county or any town or city in Colorado. Um, and I felt that was needed to pursue and become an instructor because of, what really, and I'll be honest with you, what really drove me to become an instructor is some of the folks that I was seeing to come to purchase firearms. They said they got instruction from a certain instructor, but yet still they're putting their finger in the trigger guard on an empty firearm. Whether it's unloaded or loaded, the same safety and should be adhered to, man. And I got tired of seeing that, and I was like, this is not the way, man. I cannot just stand here and watch and have to be correcting people all the time. And to know that they went to another instructor and that issue was not corrected, it bothered me quite a bit. And that's where I decided to do my part and become an instructor and make a difference as far as, especially with safety, from a safety standpoint, and at least learning the proper way to use your firearm and stuff.
Yeah,
I
and those safety rules are so important, and they
Very.
just need to be consistently and constantly
Very.
drilled into new shooters, everything. It's just we try to harp on that constantly because it's so important. So thank you for being another person who does that too.
Yeah, and I will make a plea right now to all you new shooters. If you don't have training, find you a reputable instructor to teach you the right way.
How would you say you find a reputable instructor?
There's a lot of avenues. You have to call and talk to folks. Social media, you could see an instructor doing videos and doing all this stuff. That in my eyes, that's good to get people in to come train with you and stuff. That's extremely well, but you have to do more research. You have to pay attention to folks that have trained with this individual before. See what their credentials have. I haven't been a combat guy or anything. There's combat guys that do the bad
terrible
stuff. So that, whether you were previous, I don't care if your dad, your uncle, your brother, or whoever was previous law enforcement or military or whoever. I've seen people who have made that pitch to me and their safety is horrible. So that stuff does not matter to me. Some people may think so, but it doesn't. I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter. But you can do your due diligence as somebody. If you're really wanting to learn the right way, you can talk to people that, look at their reviews, just look at different things because people talk, man. If you didn't do something right or aren't doing something right, it's going to get out there, one way or the other. So take your time. Don't just jump into training with anyone. See what their credentials are. See if they're properly certified. Here in Colorado, they require you have to be, NRA certified. I'm not saying that you have to go off of the NRA program, but you have to have some kind of baseline credentials as far as what to satisfy the state requirements. And then you go a bit further than that and see, because here, as me to get NRA and USCCA certified, you have to qualify and be able to actually shoot. You can't walk into the class here. The instructors here won't let you do that. Maybe some other places they would, but not here. You have to actually qualify and shoot. Just do your due diligence and investigate that person. There's plenty of tools to do that, whether it's social media, digging in a little bit deeper to see how long this person has been in business. A fly-by-night person, they're not going to be around for a while. They're not going to be around for very long. They'll come and they'll go. And we've seen that during like the COVID timeframes. There were a lot of firearms dealers. There were a lot of instructors. Everybody was an instructor then because everybody was buying guns. Take a look now and see where some of those instructors or dealers or different people are now. Chances are they probably aren't around,
Yeah. Yeah, they bring up a good point of having the credentials. And then another piece of it, in my opinion, as well, and tell me if you agree or disagree, there's something that we've talked about in other episodes is that having the right personality fit your personality too. So if you have somebody that just, you don't jive together, they might be, a very well-credentialed person, but if you can't like tune into however they're teaching it, if it just doesn't fit or doesn't suit your learning style, that's okay. You just go to somebody else.
Exactly.
It might work for somebody and it doesn't work for you. That's totally fine. Just got to do a little more homework.
That's right. My process of teaching, bringing someone from the ground up may not work for everyone. I try to tailor it to where it does work in very layman terms and simple terms, a step-by-step process to get people acclimated to firearms and learning how to shoot and getting acclimated to the fundamentals and just handling the firearm. And a lot of it is actually repetition.
Mm.
And by getting them to repeatedly do it and just say, hey, do this, load this magazine, fire these shots, you're done. No, we're going to do it over and over and over again. And I'll try to do it in an enjoyable way to where it's like, wow, next thing you know, they're loading when they might be struggling with loading a magazine. And I'm talking to them and paying attention. By the end of the 5, 6 hours, they're just loading that magazine away and talking to me, and man, they're focused at that point at, oh man, I was just out of the bullseye. I want to get that better. That's what I like. That's what I strive for. And I'm like, see how easy that was? And it's the process of you have to be somewhat of a likable person as well. Easy to talk to, because you don't want them to be focused on the point to where they're making mistakes. You want them to do it fluidly and and talk and do it. And that's my approach, and I'm building a relationship at the same time.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Kind of, I think what we're dancing around is having that community that is an enjoyable time, enjoyable to talk with people, share with people. Um, and I'm sure from what it sounds like, you have a great community out there where you live. And I'd love to hear just are there certain clubs or associations, or do you guys have the USPSA open new shooter kind of thing, or how do you have people that are interested in learning? Like, where do they can they just go to a club and start talking to people? Like, how does it work out there?
So, one thing that I kind of tie into to my whole to my training and new firearm shooters and some place to shoot, because a place to shoot is a big deal for a new shooter. Where do I shoot? What range do I go to? Indoor, outdoor, or different things. And this might be a little bit biased, but the range that I go to and use, it's a private range. It's Well County Fish and Wildlife, the WCFW range. Shout out to them because I'm the only instructor out there, number one. And not by choice, is because everybody else, there's a vetting process and no one else is I guess could either pass the vetting process or it's too stringent for them. So I toot my horn in that as well. But anyway,
Congratulations there.
though, thank you. And it's a range. I've been a member there for about 23 years. And now it's like I'm at the peak. I got to know a lot of the guys really well. They have USPSA competitions. They have steel matches. A lot of different things. There's archery. There's trap and skeet. There's everything out there. It's like a country club for firearms or outdoor type stuff. So a lot of my students, once they find out, that it's a very low cost for a great facility that's outdoor for you and your family. You pay one fee for you and your family. It's a gated entry, and you police yourself. They, in essence, make everyone somewhat of a range master by taking a test and everything to police yourself. But it's a great place to be, and it's open from sun up to sundown, 365 days a year. You go whenever you want, and it's a great place to shoot. So a lot of my students, they end up joining that range. I do a little pitch as like, hey, this is where I shoot all the time. You can become a member as well. Here's who you talk to. So I not only you come out and you take a class and you shoot with me, I try to make sure you have an avenue to shoot well beyond me.
Yeah,
and
and
train.
that's
Yeah.
huge because you have those. Okay, I bought a gun. I took a class. Now what? What do I do now?
Exactly.
And
You
that's
know,
that's huge that you give them that ability to.
yeah, you could
kinda-
take a class. There's folks that take classes and never train after that.
Mm.
Then guess what? When you go to shoot, you're starting all over again. Why is my shot placing like this? Because you haven't trained. You have to get reacclimated to the fundamentals and start all over. Whereas it's always a thing of mine to tell folks, man, get out and shoot. You don't have to. There's some folks that are on a plan with me to shoot once a month. I come out, I run them through little drills. We shoot quite a bit, and once a month they come. I schedule them and they come out. And it doesn't have to be with me. It can be on some of the stuff I'm showing them. They can do on their own. But some people, they like the drive of someone pushing them a little bit, which is great, and it helps me from a business standpoint. I'll be honest. But they can do. I tell them you can do this on your own. You just have to be disciplined to do it. If you want to get better and you're not disciplined to do it, then give me a call. I'll help you to get to that point. But joining the range, I tell them this is a great place. You're looking at most of the time people ask, where can I shoot? And I'm like, you're right here, right now. You can join this range.
That's awesome. Do you talk to people about dry fire much also?
Yeah, I have this saying, and I heard it from a fellow instructor in Texas that, dry firing is the deodorant of the gun world. Okay. And it is, because it costs nothing. It keeps you somewhat up to par. And it's very important, man. I show them how to dry fire as far as being safe, making sure your ammo is completely away, your firearms unloaded. Pick somewhere in your basement or your house, a light switch or something. If you have a holster, draw from it. If you're coming up from a low ready, how to aim and, to get into the groove of that nice, smooth trigger press and everything. So dry firing is very important, man. And it costs you nothing but time.
That's great. And I'm laughing internally here, Marvin, and now externally, I'm, just hearing in my head, our conversations that we've had in the past. And I love hearing that, that Kenrick is, basically word for word, just telling us what we are, what we know. And, in the same point, we're educating our listeners. So Kenrick, yeah, you're fantastic. I would love to make a trip out there to shoot with you sometime.
I would be glad to have you here, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, Marvin. I feel like I'm dominating the conversation. So you.
No. This is a great conversation. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing about it is dry fire is probably the cheapest way for someone to get proficient at firearms manipulation, and just making sure that you can fix so many things with dry fire, right? You can fix so many things, from anticipation, because you don't have a big bang. You don't have a bullet going off in your gun.
No.
So it's the easiest way to get to fix that. It's the easiest way to get to work on your sight picture, sight alignment. It's the easiest way to get your muscle memory. And then if you start drawing from holstering, you're doing dry fire. I mean, look, the benefits are amazing. So for people who are worried about spending hundreds of dollars on bullets to get that training, it's free. And, the only thing that you have to worry about is annoying your partner or your spouse. I remember when I was getting back into shooting after getting out of the military, and I was like, oh man, I gotta like shake all this rust off. Right. Yeah. And my wife was just so annoyed every night, racking that slide and just, sighting in, pulling that trigger slowly to the back and just click, rack that slide. Right. And, it wasn't a long time. It was 15, 20 minutes. We're not talking about a huge time commitment every other day, 15, 20 minutes every other day.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's phenomenal. And, it's great that you are recommending that to your students.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can always tell the students that actually they want to get better and they follow through and they dry fire and stuff like that, because it's definitely reflects on the range, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. It pays dividends.
Oh, it does.
Huge. I mean, even just 2 weeks of dry fire every other day, a huge impact. So speaking of training, you have trained and you've got relationships with some of the, I'll say some of the more popular trainers on social media. So the Real NOC, the Real Knock, and Black Guns Matter with Maj Toure. So can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with those guys?
I first met both of those guys, and I mainly trained. I met Maj, but never I've trained with him. I'll mention some of the other instructors that I train with. But I met Kevin Dixie, the real knot, at my first SHOT Show that I went to. And he had mentioned to me, he was like, it's going to be a train and learn event in Missouri. This was when he was based out of Missouri, where he's from, outside of the St. Louis area. And he said, you're going to want to be there. Okay. And that opened my eyes to a lot because I was new in the industry, and I thought, okay, yeah, I could shoot, or at least I thought I could, until you get out and you get around guys that can really shoot. And it's like, oh, you kind of tuck your tail and you open your eyes wider and pay attention, man. But not only do you get out there with folks that you can shoot with, he's very good at the camaraderie, the folks that he brings out to the events to whether it's growing your business or how to navigate social media, how to be a powerhouse in social media, how to put your messages together, how to get your messages out. Stuff like that. He's a powerhouse as far as that stuff goes. And I'm glad to say and proud to say I was an alumni at his very first train and learn event. I haven't been back since, but after seeing the one that I seen this year, I think I'm going to be there next year. He had some very good folks there doing training. Some accessory guys, Crate Tactical was out there. I sell their knives. I'm a dealer for their knives and all their accessories and stuff like that. So I was disappointed. I was like, man, I wish I was there. These guys, I sell their knives and do stuff with them. I wish I was out there to actually meet them. But he had some really, really good individuals out there doing some instruction, and you could tell the camaraderie was just at an all-time high, man. So done that, been out with Blue Scorpion, Ralph Blue out in Texas, did some training with him. I have some upcoming training with the Samurai Warrior, man. He's coming to Colorado. Yeah, he's going to be here in September on a 2-day event on the 17th and 18th of September. I'm signed up for that. I encourage anybody that's out here I don't know if there's any seats left or any slots left, but I got my slot booked, man. But he's coming out here. He's one person I follow on social media that I have a lot of respect for as far as his shooting ability and skills. So I think that's somebody good to learn and train with. And it's just ongoing, man. No matter how good you are or whatever, there's still always room for improvement. Seek higher learning as far as your in bettering your shooting ability from someone who's definitely better from you, seen a lot more, have more experience and knowledge than you. That's the only way you're going to grow, and pass it on. That's the key, man. Keep it going down the line to new shooters, new and upcoming shooters, new people in the industry, new firearms owners, especially. Pass it on. That's the only way we'll keep things alive, man.
And I think that leads into my next question is, it's a little bit different for the Black and minority gun community than it is the gun community at large, because we do see instructors and community training from the Real Knock and from Black Guns Matter, those. So I guess, for those minority and Black gun owners, or potential minority and Black gun owners, right? What are some of the things that you would recommend that they do in terms of seeking out training, seeking out that community and getting that? Because, there is a little bit of a difference when we're talking about an urban community, because, when we're talking about a lot of gun owners, we're talking about gun owners at large. We're talking about suburban, right? We're talking about rural. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about specifically urban gun ownership, urban gun community, we're talking about the two bigger names that at least I know of. I've met Kevin Dixon, the Real Knock, and we've had this conversation. But what are your thoughts in terms of in terms of that community and making sure that those individuals are able to find the appropriate community and purchasing firearms and so forth?
And my take on it is and just being totally transparent and honest, man, is number one, whether it's not where you're at, seek somebody, first of all, that's reputable, disregarding race, color, religion, or anything like that. But as humans, in some cases, especially from a urban environment or whatever, you might be more comfortable around someone who is of color as yourself. Plain and simple, honest,
Yep.
whether it's going into a gun store, whether it's getting training, or whatever the case is. Okay. People, you feel comfortable to a certain degree like that. Not everybody, but some people do. Let's be honest. When I first started out as a FFL, there was that I know of, there was only about a handful of us. One person that I learned a lot from too is Tom Dixon over from Surplus Army in Chester, Pennsylvania. Gun dealer, previous LEO, manufacturer. He had his own line and everything. And so there was probably about maybe 5 or 6 that I knew of nationwide. Now there's some that I don't even know of. There's a few groups that I'm in that a vast majority are in. And we tend to network together. Hey, I need to do a transfer for someone that's in Columbia, South Carolina. I could reach in, tap into that group. Hey, anybody in that's a FFL there, or anybody that you recommend? And chances are, somewhere around the entire country, there's someone that they in the group can recommend, or they can do it themselves because of their logistics or where they're at. So as far as from a minority standpoint, it has come a long way as far as networking and being able to push somebody towards them, or whether it's for a firearms transfer or for training. So there's groups that folks are in that made it possible for that to happen, So I use that resource to my advantage or as needed because some people request that, Let's be honest, man. In Colorado per se, for a while there, I was probably one of 2 FFLs being the only active one. Now there's at least, I think, like 3 or 4 in the state of Colorado. So it's growing. There's more. There's no excuse for anyone. I mean, it shouldn't be a barrier anyway. But if someone feels more comfortable with dealing with a minority-owned business or supporting a minority-owned business, which there's a lot of people, some folks that are like that, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's definitely directories and resources where you can find folks like that. Marshall Tig, she used to be with the USCCA. She had put out a directory with all FFLs, all instructors across the nation. So there's almost no excuse to find someone who can help you.
Awesome. I appreciate that perspective because I think that look, every community is a little bit different. Everybody is a little bit different. So we want to make sure that you can find the resources that fit. Just as we say, not every gun is a fit for every single person, right? We want people to feel comfortable, and we want people to be with like-minded individuals. And look, it gets to the point where, hey, I may be comfortable hanging out with Maj, and that gets that person into the greater gun community. That's what we want, right?
Absolutely.
What are those avenues?
That the different avenues is first of all, you have to see what your needs are.
Yeah,
man. You have to see what works for you. Or demographics play a major role in a lot of this as well. But once you figure out what your needs are, you then you reach out and you seek, you talk to people. Like I said, social media is a powerful tool. At some point, if you send a person a message, you'll get some kind of response. Maybe not right away or whatever, but that use all the tools to your advantage to make sure you're getting taken care of a person. Talk to people, get out in the community, I have an open text line. No matter who you are, where you could send me a text saying, hey, I have people saying, hey, do you know somebody in the X, Y, and Z area or whatever? And chances are, if I don't know, I'll find out. Um, so it goes back. There's no excuse. There's nowhere. Find some person or the things or the firearm or whatever that will suit your needs and pursue it. Get it done.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, along with that, I really do admire what Maj does with the Black Guns Matter company because I've been following him since back when I was in Philly. So it's really cool to get his perspective on things, educate people on the history of gun control and gun control laws. And there's things that you learn through, his classes. You don't learn it anywhere else. It's really neat to get his perspective. I really love his approach to things. I love his ability to, bring people together of everything. It doesn't matter who you are. He wants to educate you, and it's really, really cool to see. And he's always traveling the country. He's doing fundraising. He's trying to fight for Second Amendment rights. He does such a great job with it. I'd love to be able to talk with him, for a podcast episode sometime. So Maj, if you're listening, it would be cool to hook up with you.
We could definitely tag him on some of this stuff, man. And
for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
sure those guys, they'll be glad to, man. It's another avenue to get things out to the masses, man.
Well, and the other thing is, it is a kind of a small community. So I have I have a buddy who he owns Phoenix Ammunition, and he supplies a lot of the ammunition for Maj's community training event.
No kidding. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So that's, it is a very small community. So, when you hear people talk highly of or not so highly of instructors or individuals in the community, I mean, you can kind of figure out who's real and who isn't.
Right? 100% right, man. Word gets around fast, man.
And I mean, we say there are a lot of gun stores, and I mean, there are a lot of gun stores, there are a lot of trainers out there, but I mean, when you really think about it, there really aren't, right? I mean, you're saying that, hey, we got so many gun stores here, but I mean, when you're saying, hey, there's this gun store in this town in Colorado, I pretty much know who you're talking about because I've probably been there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And the community also does change. I mean, one of the more sad things, Foundation Firearms in Loveland, Colorado, right? They're gone.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it's one of those things where, we do say it is there are a lot of gun owners out there, but the community is actually very, very small.
Yeah, and speaking of a small community, I had a customer come over yesterday. He was referred to by a guy that I use for NFA engraving and stuff like that, and never met him. And even before being referred, he said, "Hey, man, I heard a lot of good things about you." And I was like, really? And of course the wheels are turning, like, what'd you hear? It's like, from who? And and I used to be at the point I used to try to remember everybody, and things just started growing. And not that I forget people, but it's just so much, and I couldn't tell you who, but he said, you're out there, man. People know about you. Even the folks that haven't dealt with you specifically, they're saying, hey, go talk to Kenrick over at On Point Arms.
Yeah.
And that's, that gives me a good feeling. That's my drive to really get to folks. So long story short, the bottom line is I spoke to this guy for a while. He is heavily into firearms and stuff like that. And he was like, man, I'm glad to have met you, man. So I'm glad to be making an impact in the industry, doing good things, helping folks and helping them get armed, teaching them the right way to police themselves around firearms and their families. And that's why I'm in the game, man. That just seals the faith as to why hearing that from that guy who I never met before, that there's a lot of good things being said about me and that just gives me the drive to keep on doing it.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So it's a good thing, man.
That's awesome. So Kenrick, you got any closing thoughts? Anything that we didn't cover during this conversation that you want to just make sure that anybody out there who's listening should know or should do?
Yep. First of all, in my last podcast and my one interview on a radio station, I got to shout out my family.
Yes.
You know, my girls, my wife, thank you for your support. All my friends and family abroad and near that trusted in me to make this happen, make it work, and continue to make it happen and work, because I have customers as far as Hawaii and Guam, the Northern Mariana Islands. So shout out to all you guys. I appreciate it. My last thoughts to everybody is to continue, keep the respect for firearms, keep it alive, keep the two-way alive, keep training, make yourself better at it, and make a difference. If you can tell one child, one individual, and one person, and introduce them to this, at least at the minimum, the safety of firearms, please do it. You know, if you can teach your kids at a minimum, they don't have to love firearms, but just teach them how to be safe around a firearm, how to clear a firearm, get them in a class at least at a minimum to clear a firearm. If they go over to their friend's house and there's a firearm there, at a minimum, they could clear it, make it safe, and say, hey, everybody, that firearm's safe, leave it there, because and just be safe, you know. Think about your kids, you know. We don't, you know, negligent discharges or suicides with a firearm or anything just leaves a bad mark on the whole industry. Do your best, do your part, and I think all in all, we can make this community a better community. It's already a great community, but make it better and come together as one, man. Power in numbers, man.
I agree. I agree. I think what you just talked about there is, you know, when we're talking about suicides, we're talking about accidental deaths. The numbers are already so small in regard to the larger number of gun deaths in this country. But when we're talking about that, it's something that if we as gun owners all pushed that safety, that culture of safety, that culture of responsibility in the people around us, then you're going to make a big impact. And you know,
Yep.
we're never going to reduce it to zero, but we can reduce it even further. And it isn't something that you don't do that by fear. You do that by not being fearful. You do that by encouraging a culture of safety and a culture of, hey, this is a tool. This is, you know, something that people use to protect themselves, and we do it that way. You don't fix things by making it something that everybody is afraid of.
No, we do it by acclimation, man.
Yep.
You acclimate your kids, you acclimate a family member who has some certain fear about firearm. It's done by acclimation, man. And if we could acclimate one person at a time, that's all it takes, man. And that's one thing I believe in. There's so many folks that have come and said, I'm just scared of guns. I want to learn about firearms. I want to learn to shoot, but I'm scared. Acclimation. What's the first thing a kid would want to do if there's a firearm laying around? Go and play with it.
Mm-hmm.
You acclimate a kid to a firearm, they could see it laying around there all day. They'll probably clear it and put it away.
Yep. Or not touch it and just get an adult.
Exactly. But the last thing that once they're acclimated, they're going to want to do is go play with it.
Yep.
Because they're acclimated and they have the respect for it. Acclimation is key for whether it's a child, whether if it's an adult, no matter who it is. And that cures a lot, man.
Awesome.
And there's been so many of those experiences that I've had when I've taken a new gun owner to the range, you know, before they've even purchased their gun, you know, kind of take them through that entry level basic safety at the range, show them how, because they've expressed that interest of, I've never shot a gun, never held a gun, but I want to learn because of XYZ reason. It could be for several reasons that I've heard. And you take them there and you go through that basic safety, you have them shoot that first shot, and the difference between that first shot with that bang versus maybe 30, 45 minutes later when they're able to shoot multiple controlled shots in a grouping, it's like that light bulb moment goes off and they are maybe not 100% rid of that fear, because there's that little healthy fear that they still have, but it's, you have taken them from all the way up here at, super alert, jacked up, worried, to minimal, because they've gotten that, like you said, that
Yep.
acclimation to it, and they've been exposed to it in a
Yep.
safe environment.
And I tell folks, when you're shooting a fire, you're in control of the firearm. It's gonna go bang when you want it to go bang. When you press or squeeze that trigger, it's gonna go bang. It's not gonna do it on its own. You're in control. Get acclimated, and that's the way it should be. It's not gonna grow legs and, like we always say, and go off and go bang 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 all over the place on its own, man.
Yep.
Yeah. And Kenrick, this has been a fantastic conversation. I love hearing your story, love what you bring to the table, love what you're doing in the community and for the community. And I really look forward to getting out to meet you in person sometime. We'll definitely be staying in touch for sure. I just want to ask, I don't think we had it at the beginning, so can you just tell us where people can find you, whether it be social media, website, anything like that you'd like to offer up?
Yep. I am on Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram is on Point Arms. After each word, there's an underscore. So on_point_arms_ LLC_. And then I'm on Facebook as On Point Arms LLC, or you could follow my personal page, Kenrick Illidge. I place a lot of content on that page as well, because it's not shadow banned. That's a big thing. There's no growth on my Instagram anymore because of being shadow banned, but I think I'm not the only one in that boat. Our website is store.onpointarmsllc.com or www.onpointarmsllc.com for our training signups and what classes are available. Our phone number is 970-460-9952. You can call that number or text. I answer every individual that texts me sooner or later, oftentimes more sooner. And just reach out. I'm easy to find, or you could Google On Point Arms LLC and reach out to me that way as well.
So we
Wonderful.
will make sure that we put links to all of your social media, your website, everything.
Absolutely.
In the description of this episode, so that way anybody who's listening can find you easily.
Mhm.
We also ask that any of our listeners, if you enjoyed this content, that was useful to you, help us make more. Give us a 5-star review on any of the platforms that you're listening on, and give us a follow, and that way we can keep bringing you great firearms content for the new and prospective gun owner.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Kenrick, for this conversation.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure being here with you guys, man.
No,
I really
appreciate
appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right,
Take
bye.
care.